So we're going to hang a door, and these are the tools that we'll need. Hammer, chisels, level, tape, combination square, Phillips head driver, 1/8 drill bit in a drill, 2 metre level, planer, and a door block. We're going to install a door at 770mm to fit this opening. So we're going to use two 85mm butt hinges to hang a hollow core door in this opening, which is 770mm wide. So the door we're going to be hanging will be in this opening. As you can see, the door jamb does not have a rebate on it, as we've put a wider reveal at 170mm to cover a block wall. So we're going to hang the door and then add our own timber trim as the rebate. I have already rebated the hinges, 150mm from the top and 175mm from the bottom previously. It's been painted over. You can clean out the paint from the rebates, then transfer those hinge marks onto my story rod. So using our story rod, butt the top of the story rod into the top of the jamb and then mark the hinge rebate onto the story rod. I've transferred the story rod and clamped it onto the side of the door here. I want to aim to have a 3mm gap the whole way around the door for clearance inside the jamb. So I'm using this 3mm packer to keep the story rod 3mm above the top of the door. I now transfer the marks from our story rod using a combination square onto the side of our door. Now I'll mark the hinges onto the side of the door to get rebated. Use your combination square to mark the thickness of the hinge, then transfer that mark on to the face of the door so you know how much to rebate from the door. Take a sharp Stanley blade and trace the butt hinge onto the door, scribing it with the knife. Now, chisel out between the lines. We're going to screw on the hinges now by placing them in the rebate, pre-drilling, and then screwing them on with Phillips head screws. Okay, now we're going to screw the hinges onto the door jamb, pre-drilling first. Now you've your hinges installed on the door, it's ready to hang. Just make sure before you hang it, get some primer and seal the bottom of the door to make sure no moisture enters the door. Now we have the hinges installed on the door. We have a rebate for our lock. I'll go through and do this while I'm rebating the hinges. Now it's just a matter of screwing the door back into the hinge rebate. Or you just place a small wedge on the ground to get me my height. So now the door is hung, swings freely. We have our 3mm gap around the sides and the top. This will allow for another millimetre of paint, still swing. When I set up the jamb, I always give the jamb an extra 6mm of clearance to fit the door in. So when you hang the door, it doesn't need to be planed down and can swing freely. I aim for a 3mm gap at the top and about a 5mm gap at the bottom for clearance on top of the flooring. Now the last job is just to install a bit of stocking trim on the inside of the door jamb. So what we do is we line the door up flush on the other side of the door. I've got some marks here, and then we just measure one head and 2 stiles. Just got to measure the stile and take off the thickness of the top piece of trim, which will be 12mm. Now I've cut our backside of the jamb, throw a bit of wood glue, PVA glue onto that. Shut the door to your marks. The side where the hinges are, give it a 2 to 3mm gap. The back side of the door. And then you should have your mark for where it closes flush on the side. Final step in hanging the door. So with the door swinging nicely, going well, got a nice 3mm gap the whole way around, ready to get painted. Using this technique, you can hang one door to 20 doors using this technique with the story rod. It's a good system, it's what I use, and yeah, it worked out well.